Hello, dreamers and thinkers, and welcome back to another episode of Undone. I am super excited about today's episode. I feel like I'm super excited about a lot of episodes, but I feel like in particular the ones where I get to have real life people on and we just discuss different aspects of life that maybe aren't discussed as often as they should be. This is definitely one of those. On today's episode, I have Salomi with me. And just a few years ago, Salomi was diagnosed with orthorexia. For those of you who don't know what that is, it is an eating disorder that involves an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating. And this one's really interesting because I feel like in all of this, our relationship with food and exercise is a very nuanced conversation. And I feel like this was a really important aspect to touch on, is that in our plight to do the right thing and be healthy, that can also go to the extreme end. And so I felt like this was a really important conversation to highlight and to have. Beck kind of touched on this area a little bit last week, but I'm super excited for you guys to hear Salomi's story, just to give you a precursor for next week's episode so that you come back. I have Auntie Cora, our resident in-house wise auntie, back on with me, and we're just going to talk through how culture affects how you relate to your body and how you relate to food, and how growing up in different cultures influences your relationship with food and what that looks like. How your attachment style also plays into your relationship with food and how you see it. So I'm just super excited for the next 2 episodes. And then after that, this series will be done. So if you have any topics or questions that you would like me to discuss, please feel free to send those in on the Instagram page. It is at undone.thepodcast. But I just want to thank you guys for listening and being supportive and sharing so much love. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, Salomi, onto the podcast. To start off, we're going to do what's one scripture or quote that you live by or always go back to.
Thanks for having me. One scripture that has been a thread throughout the last few years for me has been when John the Baptist says, he must become greater, I must become less. I always come back to that just because I think that translates into a lot of areas in my life, and I always have to try to think, okay, well, how actually do I make myself become less so that Jesus can be glorified more in my life?
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I need to go back and read the Gospels again. Where is that?
It's in John. That's all I know. John 3, actually.
Oh, okay. Noted. John 3. So, describe your relationship, what your relationship has been like with food. What that means to you when you think of that.
Okay. So my relationship with food has been quite up and down, but I'll just start from the beginning. So in my younger years going through school, I was super active and just really loved sport and didn't really think too much about food. Our family diet was quite healthy, but typical African kind of food, like meat and veg, had pizza here and there. Wasn't unhealthy, but wasn't super Pete Evans or anything either, just your typical food. But it was very healthy in the sense that dieting or diets and that kind of thing was just never spoken about in our house. To me, diets were something that celebrities did or that I read about in magazines, but it wasn't something that my mum ever mentioned, or even our bodies or weight or anything was just never spoken about. I was just so unaware of, the fact that there was so much emphasis put on people's bodies. So that was me growing up, and then I think in about high school, probably around year 11, I started to go through your typical teenage girl kind of stuff, or maybe a bit younger as well. But I guess I just started to realise how much people valued that. And I remember even finding out that boys like bums, and I thought that was the weirdest thing. And I found that out in year 11.
You're like, wait, what?
I was like, why? That's just weird. And That's how, I mean, I was in year 11. That's pretty late to find that kind of stuff out. Like, the kids these days are exposed to it way earlier.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just mean that I was quite, what's the word? Naive to just the pressure of body, like your physical appearance and your body shape and that kind of thing. I valued things like my grades and my personality and you know, my achievement in sports so much more than all those other things.
Yeah.
And then in year 11, I started to realize that people actually really care about, you know, your body shape, and that's why boys like you. That's why a boy likes that girl, because of their A, B, and C, you know, things like that. It was just really, I guess, surprising for me to learn. And so then through those later years, when you start being less involved with sport and your metabolism slows down a little bit, I did naturally start to put on a bit of weight. But I was like super happy with that. I was, you know, getting a little bit bigger, but so content. And I noticed that I was putting on weight, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
And especially when I started my first year of uni, I was doing 0 exercise, but eating the same I'd always eaten. And it was probably to the point where it was very unhealthy in the fact that I was eating so much junk food. Like, I just love junk food. Even in, you know, my later high school years, I would get a Whopper every day on the way home from school. Literally, I was obsessed with Whoppers. My mum got one phone call from the school from any of us kids, and it was because I had ordered a pizza in my class, and it was in my child studies and nutrition class, and I was like ordering this pizza during the lesson, and the teacher found out, and my mum got this phone call, and she was like, Salomi, you need to stop.
You need to relax. Wait, was it to come to school?
No, I was going to go pick it up in lunchtime. I just wanted to be prepared. I'm all about efficiency.
I love that so much.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I was still eating that way and just not exercising at all. So I was putting on this weight. And then, yeah, I think it was probably around 2015, there was a sudden shift in I guess, how I felt about my body and what I was eating. So I joined a gym and I started exercising. And this little seed was sown into my mind that obviously if you're exercising, you're using the fuel in your body. Yeah. So if I eat healthier, then I'm going to use that fuel really quickly, and then I'll start burning fat. Okay. And so then the next step was, okay, well, if I just eat less healthy food, then I'll be burning more fat. Okay, well, what if I don't have anything in my stomach and I exercise? Well, then I'll be burning the most amount of fat. Yeah. And so it was just this, I guess, this realization that, you know, I can lose weight really quickly if I just starve my body of fuel. Yeah. And so that's what I started doing. And as soon as I realized I had this, it was a very sudden shift, and it was a drastic shift of my thoughts with food, you know. So I went from not caring what I ate at all to now everything I think about is, well, if I eat this, then I'm going to have to work out this long. Yeah. You know, and so I'm very self-aware. I knew that I had developed this unhealthy kind of thought process. Yeah. And so at that stage, Rowan and I had only been dating for a few months. We were doing long distance. He lived in Melbourne, I lived in Adelaide. Rowan's my husband, for those who don't know. And I even told him while we were doing long distance, I was like, hey, I think I've got this weird thing happening with food. Like, I think just keep an eye on me. I think I might be developing some unhealthy habits. I was very aware.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a brave thing to say to someone.
Yeah, and I guess I had seen some people around me who had very severe eating disorders, and this was nothing like that. And I was just trying to be healthy. Yeah. You know, that's what I was telling myself. But I also was pretty scared of, I don't know, I just knew, you know, that it's a slippery slope once you start. And so then fast forward to when I moved to Melbourne, it had only just gotten more and more severe as it went on. So from around 2015 to 2018, so it was about 3 years, that whole entire time I was trying to get back to my normal self. So I knew that I was really unhealthy, and I didn't want to think about food, but for me I was a slave to being 100% healthy all the time. So for example, I would not eat a gram of sugar. I would not eat a single bite of sugar. That was kind of like my Achilles heel. I would eat sometimes I would sometimes eat pizza and sometimes eat chips and things like that. But for me, sugar was like the devil. Like, I could not touch it. Wow. There was even one time early on in our relationship, again, early 2016, I went to South Africa with Ruan's family, and when we got there, we were having this big family celebration of, reunited. Yeah, it's really nice. And they brought out these Lindor chocolates. And they, the uncle offered me one. And I was like, oh, no, thank you. I always just said, no, I'm fine, thanks. Whenever anyone offered me dessert, I just say, oh, no, I'm okay, thanks. And then they all said, no, have one. And so I felt so awkward I had to take one. But I was filled with so much anxiety over this one chocolate.
Wow.
And so I was just sitting there and I was just holding it in my hand. And Ruan knew that, I was struggling and stuff. But there were some times where he would help me and he'd go, it's okay, I'll eat it. But sometimes he would say, no, you need to eat this. And so that was one of those moments where he just kind of ignored it and he's like, no. But then Ruan's sister saw how anxious I was, and so she took it off me and she just ate it in one bite. And I was so thankful for her doing that. I was so thankful. But it's just crazy that I couldn't eat this one bit of chocolate to celebrate us being with each other.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of moments like that where we would go out for my birthday and someone would shout me a drink, but it was too sugary, so I'd have to manipulate the room and pretend that I was drinking this drink, and it was consuming.
That's insane.
Yeah. But then again, I would eat a bag of brainwaves. And that was okay. But then if I did do that, or if I did have a bite of sugar or something, I would annihilate myself at the gym the next day. I would absolutely punish myself. So if I had the night before, Nando's or something, the next day I would sprint 10Ks on the treadmill.
Oh my God.
And it was to the point where people who worked at Jets literally came up to me and they were like, are you training for an event? You are sprinting for an hour. And I was like, no, I just like being fit,
Yeah.
But they thought I was this elite sprinter because I was just working so hard every day because I had to make up for that bite that I had 2 days before. And so I went from eating whatever I wanted and not really respecting the fact that my body needed nutritious food to now I could tell you everything I had eaten for the last 3 days. Every bite I had for the last 3 days, I could recite it for you.
Where did you get the idea that sugar was the bad guy?
Honestly, I think it was Pete Evans, to be honest.
Because he did the whole no refined. Is he the one who started the no refined sugar?
No, that's Sarah Wilson.
Okay.
And so I'd heard of that, but then I went on the paleo diet, and so the paleo diet is just anything natural. Yeah. So if you can find it on the earth, you can eat it. Obviously, sugar is refined and everything, so you can't eat it. But I would have honey and natural sugars. Yeah. But just no refined sugar. I don't know where. I think it was just a lot of researching of what's the most addictive part of unhealthy eating? Sugar. Sugar is super addictive. Yeah. So I was like, if I don't eat sugar at all, I know that puts on a lot of calories and I know it's addictive. So the longer I go without it, the easier it gets to go without it. Yeah. And so then natural sugars in fruit and things like that did become so much sweeter. And so I honestly didn't want sugar. Yeah. And so people would look at me and go, oh my gosh, you've got such good self-control. Yeah. And I did, but it was also an addiction. Yeah. I was also a slave to not having sugar. Yeah. So,
That's so interesting. Oh my gosh. Well, I've got two parts actually. What made you want to do the paleo diet? Mm-hmm. And earlier you said something about how you had seen it can become a slippery slope for people. And even up until now, have you ever seen anyone who's managed to get that balance in terms of not obsessing, but keeping it a balanced lifestyle? Because everyone speaks of a balanced diet, balanced whatever, but
what does that mean?
That's what I mean. What does that mean? How do you get there?
Yeah. So the first question, why did I do paleo? Yeah. So I was interested in the paleo diet because for me it wasn't as constricting in that they say that you can eat as much as you want. Yeah. It just should be natural foods. Yeah. Because our ancestors and cavemen and all those things, that's what they lived on, you know? And so back in those days, there was no such thing as obesity and diabetes and all those things because, you weren't eating refined food. It was just,
natural
the natural, beautiful food that God's provided us on the earth. So that's why I started it. And also I kept going with it because I was losing a lot of weight very quickly. Yeah. So not only, was I researching a lot about the benefits, but I was also getting validated from everyone around me going, you look so good. Yeah. You're so skinny. You look so beautiful. I can see you're glowing, Yeah. And so that was another as well as, you know, having all the addictiveness of disordered eating and like the mental drain of that, was also this other side of like I was getting so much validation, and from the Christian people in my life, you know, people who I really respect were telling me all the time how good I looked. Yeah. And so more and more emphasis, I think, was I was placing more and more emphasis on how I looked, and I felt that my worth was increasing the skinnier and healthier I was becoming.
Yeah. Oh, Beck and I spoke about that in the episode I did with her, and she was talking about how she's conscious of how she compliments people, because she's like, I'd rather compliment you on something that's like substantial than complimenting on your physique. And I was like, I've noticed recently, and like the last year or two, I've just stopped complimenting people on their physique unless I know what your journey has been on that. Yeah. Even if I notice a difference, I won't compliment it, because I'm like, I don't know what could be going on behind the scenes, and I don't want to feed into anything. Totally. And so I'm like, I'd rather be like, oh, have you been like exercising more? What have you been doing? Like, tell me more. And she's like, her go-to question is like, oh, like, tell me, how does that make you feel? Like, do you feel it's sustainable? Like, how's that going for you? And I was like, oh,
that's super helpful. That. Yeah. Totally, because even, so I kind of got out of all of this stuff around the end of 2018. So like when we got married, maybe a few months before that. And so I was on this journey for 3 years of trying to put on weight. Like I had this goal in mind of trying to put on weight. Yeah. All I wanted was to get above this certain weight on the scales. And I had people like praying for me, and like that was my goal. And so then people
praying for you to put on weight.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God. And but I would still have people coming up to me being like, "You're so skinny." And I'm like, I know, and that's not a compliment to me. Yeah. And also, you're so skinny. A lot of this is genetics. Yeah. My mum is a twig. A lot of how I look has nothing to do with what I'm doing. It's completely out of my control. Yeah. So the fact that you're highlighting something in me that's so, like there's no substance. Like it's so fickle. It's like, I did nothing for this, so thanks. You know?
Like, I'll take it, sure.
Yeah, literally. So, I completely agree with that. I think in that time when people were giving me those compliments of, oh, you're so skinny, you look so good, they had no idea that they were doing so much damage to me. Yeah. Because I was trying to get my mind off of my body. I didn't want to think about it. But every time someone told me things like that, or mentioned my weight, or just mentioned like my skinny legs or my skinny arms, oh my God, it was just another hour of me thinking about it. Yeah. You know? And it was just creating a lot of setbacks in my recovery.
Yeah. Have you ever found or like seen anyone who has a balance in terms of health and fitness and whatever?
I have heaps of people in my world that I look up to because of their balance. One particular friend that I have is Alicia. I studied podiatry with her. She might even listen to this podcast. She's always been like super healthy. She's vegan. She's loves her food, but everything is in balance for her. So she runs and stuff and she exercises, but if she misses a day, that's fine. Like she would never plan her day or miss out on anything because, oh no, I don't get to exercise or something like that. And so it's been really, I felt very privileged having her beside me as I've gone through this. But I think now I've found that balance. So now I'll exercise most days, but I can also go on my honeymoon for 2 weeks and not care that I can't exercise. Yeah. You know, like I remember when I was in that phase of really struggling, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to hide this from my kids. You know, I'm going to have to hide this from my teenage girls. I don't want to put this on them. That's how hopeless I was. I never thought I was going to get better.
My goodness.
I thought that this was going to be me forever because I could not see a way out. Like I was just like, this is it, you know. And I worked at Jeans West at the time. Random, but I remember a girl came in at one point and she was looking at the maternity jeans. Yeah. And she saw that one of the jeans was size 6. Yeah. And she said, oh my gosh, I can't believe they even sell this in a size 6. Who's going to be size 6 when they're pregnant? And I was just thinking, I'm going to be a size 6. Like, I know. Yeah, excuse me. I'm going to be a size 6, you know. And at that stage, that was like 10 years away, but that's how long-term I was thinking that I was going to be in this issue. Even though I didn't want to be in it, I was still kind of planning to still be profit off this disordered eating. Yeah. But now it's just so different. Like, I can't even tell you the freedom that I feel. I eat what I want to eat when I want to eat it.
Yeah.
I exercise when I want to, not because I have to, but because I enjoy exercise.
Yeah.
I think that you always have to be, I guess, aware of your relationship with food and with exercise, because I think it's a slippery slope for anyone, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think your mindset's really important. So even if your behaviour hasn't changed, I think you need to be aware of your mindset. So I'm constantly checking in on that, and I'm really lucky to have a husband who, you know, gives me the hard word when he needs to, will tell me, no, Salomi, eat the Whopper. You know?
Like, relax.
But yeah, I'm super thankful for where I'm at now.
So what changed? Like, what flicked the switch?
A lot of prayer. So what it really was, a lot of prayer and a lot of input from other people. So it actually got to the point where my middle sister sat me down and she called an intervention. So I had been living in Adelaide and then I moved to Melbourne. So my sister had also moved to Melbourne like 2 or so years before. So when she left our family home, I was in that phase of eating pizza and everything every day. So then when I moved to Melbourne and I was in the midst of it, it was like traumatic for her to see. It was just shocking, the contrast of who I was before. And I actually asked her to send a message of what it was like for her to watch me go through this. So I'll just read that. So she said, I guess everyone's experience is different, but for me, I started to notice that Salomi had a problem when she slowly began to almost fade away. The Salomi I knew, my sister, had changed, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. She became less of herself, gradually disappearing more and more until it was like I couldn't even reach her, and I had always been able to reach her before that. I think that's when I noticed that she was listening to the voice of disordered eating more than her own true voice, and more than the voices of her loving and close family. Oh, try not to cry. Watching her journey through the pain and heartache as she fought to find healing and wholeness was scary and... Oh, don't you cry as well. Oh gosh. Was scary and emotional. I was desperate for her to walk her path and find her way. You might have to edit a few of these. Oh my gosh. I was desperate for her to walk her path and find her way back to herself. It was terrifying to think of what she may be like if that didn't happen. It was extremely emotional to see her take more and more steps towards herself, towards wholeness, and still to this day I'm filled with nothing but pride for the way she navigated her way to happy, full and true Salomi. Oh gosh.
That was so beautiful.
So me and Eliza, my sister, we're like best friends. We're super close. And so she sat me down at one stage and she just said, I hadn't spoken to her about anything. Ruan knew all about it and a few people I'd spoken to, but it had never been spoken out loud. And she said to me, Salomi, how are you going with food? And it just like hit me like a train, and I just said, what do you mean? And she just said, and she's a psychologist as well. So she's I see you. And she just asked me. She wasn't accusing or anything like that. She just asked me, and I think the more I spoke, the more I unraveled this, hard exterior of I'm fine, it's fine.
Yeah, like it's health, it's fitness, this is good for me, this is what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. And so through that conversation, I decided, okay, I'm going to go and see a nutritionist. Because up until that point, I should be clear as well, I never, suffered with bulimia or anything like that. I was just super, super healthy, and I exercised a lot. So on paper, that's what everyone's promoting. That's what the health and fitness industry is promoting. Eat well and exercise, and that's health. That's what I was doing, but I was actually suffering from orthorexia. Do you know what that is? This is the term I was looking for. I randomly found it on a YouTube video and I was like, what is this new eating disorder? And it's like where you take health and fitness to the extreme level and it becomes obsessive kind of. Literally, yeah. So it crosses over a little bit into anorexia and into OCD as well. Yeah. So there's a few different facets of it, but yeah, up until that point, I was just telling myself, no, I'm healthy. I'm just being healthy. You guys are all the unhealthy ones. Yeah. You guys shouldn't be eating sugar. That one bite of sugar is going to kill you. But I just said after that conversation, I'm going to go see a nutritionist and give her all of the information. Yeah. And if an expert tells me you've got a problem, then I've got a problem. I was studying podiatry. I was studying science. So I believe in science and in
Yeah.
evidence, and I respect, the experts in their fields. So I went to see a friend of my sister, actually, and I had to send her everything I ate for 3 days.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I went to that appointment, and she just, she had a meeting with her supervisor and came back, and she just said, look, Salomi, I'm really concerned,
Yeah.
for this and this and this reason. And I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh.
Concerned. What?
I had known that I was kind of dabbling in maybe having disordered eating, but I never would have said I've got an eating disorder. I never would have said those words. But after that, I was like, no, I've got a legit problem. I need to let people in and not just speak about it to Ruan. He did a great job, but I needed accountability in with my family, with a few different friends. I needed people around me.
Yeah.
And so, we had that appointment, came back, had a meeting with my sister, her husband, and Ruan. And we all just spoke about it. We spoke about what we're going to do to help me.
Yeah.
Oh. And, oh my gosh. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
And they were just super loving, and they laid hands on me and prayed for me, and they just supported me and, I guess, journeyed with me.
Yeah.
Until recovery. So I think that was the switching point, was I think shedding light on it to people in my world. So it's biblical. If you keep things in darkness, it would just fester.
Yeah.
And so the devil was just taunting me so much. And as soon as it was out in the open and people knew about it and we could have open conversations and not skirt around this, this elephant in the room that everyone knows about but no one's saying.
Yeah.
I think I experienced a lot of freedom through that.
So what would you say are your principles now that guide your view around health and fitness?
Principles. I like that question.
Or philosophies, I don't know.
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about. I guess I always just try to be, the best version of myself, and I always want to view my physical appearance as secondary to what's happening on the inside.
Yeah.
So, I don't really even think about it, to be honest. To be careful with, not slipping back into old habits, I'll treat myself, very regularly and things like that. So I make sure that I've got a balance in terms of, have dessert, enjoy food.
Yeah.
The thing with all of this, this whole journey with food and anyone who's got disordered eating, it is so isolating.
Yeah.
So much of our community happens around food.
Mm-hmm.
Our whole day is planned around food.
Let's go to coffee. Let's go to dinner. Let's do brunch. Come over and we'll have cheese and wine.
Yeah, it's literally celebrations happen around food. Everything. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, it was just so isolating, and I was just 80% of my thought process was going towards food, and that only left 20% to study and focus on relationships and that kind of stuff. So I think now, I prioritize exercise and I enjoy eating healthy, but that is not at all my priority. That is not the reason I'm here. And I think now I've just got a greater understanding of my identity, and what actually matters. I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, that was good.
Sorry.
Okay, no, I like this one. What advice would you give young girls?
What advice would I give young Salomi? I would say, not even just for younger girls, just for humans, is just to be careful of who you let speak into your life. So what are you listening to? What are you focusing on? Who are you following on social media? What influences are you following? Look at their lives and their priorities and what their foundation is built on. And if that doesn't align with who Jesus has called you to be, or if that's conflicting with the truth of what God's saying about you, then get out of there. It is. I think it's as simple as flee in the opposite direction, because we are so bombarded with information and messages. Society as a whole is already telling us that our worth is found in our appearance. Yeah. As in we get that from media, from movies, from all those other sources. we don't need to be putting people in our immediate sphere who are doing that as well.
Yeah.
And that might mean, having some hard conversations with your best friends and going, hey, when you mention my A, B, and C, it's actually, it makes me focus too much on that area of my body, and it's not helpful,
Yeah.
Or unfollow some accounts on Instagram. We are so in control of those things. I think sometimes we're like, oh no, it's Instagram, it's all these influencers, that's unhealthy for me. We'll do something, I'm all about prayer, and of course, like, Jesus transformed me. 100%. I'm whole today because Jesus transformed my mind. But there was also some practical things that I did, which made that journey so much easier.
Yeah. Actually, let's get into it. What were the practical things?
Okay, so I think, so it was literally just I wouldn't run. So at that point, I was running 10Ks every day, maybe up to 15 or 5. So then I said, well, no, I have to do half of that.
Yeah.
Or I have to go like 2 weeks without exercise or something like that. So I just looked at like the amount I was exercising. If that wasn't considered healthy by, who, then well, I shouldn't be doing it. So I physically cut down on the exercise I was doing. I also changed some of the exercise I was doing. So a lot of what I was doing was purely calorie burning kind of workout. So did a bit of research on that and cut a lot of that out. And then I asked people around me, I asked Ruan and my sister and, some friends and family, I said, if you see me not eating something that you think that I can eat, can you, like, you're going to have to nudge me a little bit and just go, no, Salomi, you can eat that.
Yeah.
And there is a fine line between that, because for a little while I felt that I was making a lot of breakthrough in this whole area, but people were kind of keeping me there. And so, people were reminding me a lot of, oh no, you should eat this. Like, sometimes I just feel like a salad, and it's okay for me to eat a salad,
Yeah.
So I think have some good conversations with people around you, and just say what's going to be helpful for you, and where and how you actually want them to speak into this area.
Yeah.
Like, if you want them to give you a hard word when they need to, then you have to accept when they do that.
You
So when
like, ow, that was attacking.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so offended. We're not friends. So when Ruan said to me, Salomi, order a pizza tonight, I had, like, even though my mind was screaming no, I just had to go, no, the heart is deceitful. I'm going to listen to Ruan. We've prayed that, Ruan would have discernment in when to push me. I have to trust God that this is, this is healthy. I need to do this.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot about, like, community was what helped you, but community was also, like, the thing that made it really difficult when you were in it, because it was, like, a lot of events are around food.
Yeah.
So what are things that you have noticed that, and we kind of touched on it before, that communities do, whether it's, like, I don't know, uni friends, just friendship circles, family, church friends, that kind of thing, that feed into things like this. And then what are things that we can do better?
I love that. So some really unhelpful things, I think, in this society, but also I just want to preface that, like, a lot of the things said to me that were really damaging were from Christian people. Like, I think as Christians, we need to be so much better in this area. You know? Like, we say that, our identity is in Jesus and beauty's from the inside, but
God cares about the heart.
Yeah. But 95% of the compliments we give are appearance-based. It feels so intimate to give a compliment on someone's character or someone's, someone's passions or some gifts that they have. But we mention someone's weight and how skinny they are so quickly. It's completely upside down.
Like, that's a really cute outfit. Oh, girl, look at your makeup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I just think we need to be mindful of that. Some unhelpful things as well. I think just putting so much emphasis on the exterior, like we've just been speaking about it, but I don't know, just when you think about what you like in someone, you never think about their exterior. You're always thinking about their character, they're funny. So tell them those things. Yeah. Tell your friends what you actually like about them, and I doubt that the first thing you're going to say is, oh, I love your hair. It's not that those things don't matter. In the Bible, beauty was mentioned and, jewelry and all those things were mentioned, but they weren't the priority. They were always secondary to the person's heart and the person's character. So we should just try to lift those things up and shine light on those areas in a person. And then I think naturally you prioritize your body and how you look so much less.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that would be really helpful. I think just being careful around how people speak about eating disorders, or, I don't know, even just people's eating habits. Like, so much conversation is around people's latest diets or people's latest eating, or like,
yes.
I don't know, like, it's just so unimportant.
Yeah.
But I do not, like, we shouldn't care so much about what someone else is eating or what that girl's eating. She's just started this diet, maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, we all have such different bodies. If we ate the same way for a year, we'd still have completely different bodies.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so I just think it's not helpful to ask people, like, what diet are you on? Or, like, how are you eating lately? What have you cut out? What have you cut out that's giving you results, you know? Because there's no one size fits all.
No, there isn't. And also, these are, like, the things that no matter what the relationship is, when you're going through, like, a rough patch, you're not thinking, oh, I should really focus on making this work because she's so pretty.
Yeah.
That's not what's important to you. You care about the character. You're like, oh, I still love this person because of this characteristic, and so I appreciated that, and I'm going to keep working through it with that.
Totally. I think all in all, what's kept me healthy. So there was probably about a year or so where I was recovering, and I was recovered, but I was still kind of, you know, in there.
Yeah.
And I think what changed for me in that period of time was the fact that that Bible verse that I mentioned at the start, I really wanted that to be true in my life. And in that Bible verse, first it says, he must become greater, I must become less. So when he becomes greater in your life, when he becomes bigger, you naturally become less.
Yeah.
You know? And so I started focusing on getting to know God, getting to know his character, and not just knowing about him and knowing about his character, but knowing him, you know.
Yeah.
And naturally, when you get to know your maker, your identity becomes so much more solid in what he says about you.
Yeah.
And in what he deems important. So all these things they just naturally become transformed, you know.
Yeah.
It really was a renewing of my mind. Like, as I got to know God again and started pursuing him and literally giving this issue to him, praying every day, God, help me to not think about food today. Help me to have a healthy mindset. You know, it's a weird thing to pray, but
it's a really vulnerable thing to pray. Because it's like, it's one of those ones where you feel like it's like not an important prayer.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's to be vulnerable, so vulnerable that you're like, God, I know you. So many other people come to your prayer request, but I just really need you to help me not think about food today.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's what I'm needing from you, and I'm trusting that you will supply that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's so true. There's certain things that you just think are, oh, God does not care about this, you know? Like, he's got bigger things. I should be praying for my salvation or thanking him for grace or praying for so-and-so. But the truth is, God mourns with us when we mourn, you know?
Yeah.
He was crying with me when I was crying. He so cares about those things. And the devil comes to destroy our peace, destroy our identity in God. Anything that's bringing you down and, you know, taking away your peace, taking away your confidence, that's spiritual, and that's from the devil. And so praying over those things is what made the difference for me, you know. I completely believe that God was the one that transformed me and renewed my mind, and he does that daily. I still have to be careful of this stuff, and I still have to, you know, pray about it and stuff, but I guess, when your foundation's solid in who he is, then the devil doesn't have a hold. Yeah.
I love that. I wanted to end, like, as you're talking, I was like, I really want to end the podcast differently to how I usually do. So, background story. We go to church together, and we've, like, I feel like we've had a few conversations together, but we've never had, like, a in-depth conversation. But there's, like, so much that I think of when I see you, but I, like, never tell you.
Oh.
So this is what we're doing.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry still.
But, like, I feel like the first thing, I'm gonna have to try and make this coherent, but the first thing I think of when I think of you is that, like, you're just, like, a ball of light. Like, you're just so radiant and so, like, attractive in that sense, in that you just seem like a really loving person and, like, high energy. But also I think of and is it emotionally, there's this book called Emotionally Healthy. spirituality. And I haven't read it yet. I've been meaning to read it.
Yeah, I like the title.
But like, I think of that when I think of you as well, is that not only are you focused on God and becoming who He has called you to be and being in better relationship with Him, but like you're focused on being like emotionally healthy at the same time, and how that feeds into your spirituality and how that feeds into how you love people, and also just really love how you look at the world, like how you just like critique everything. I'm like, I like this. I like your mind. I like the way you think.
Thank you. That's really nice. I agree. I learn a lot from your podcast. Even like I think it's amazing what you're doing. I've learned so much through how many episodes? Not even that many, but yeah. Like I just think it's so cool that you've stepped into God's calling on your life, and you're using your voice in a dark world. You're shining God's light. I think that's awesome.
And that wraps up this episode. Salomi and I had so much fun. After that was like, after we switched off the mic, we just continued to speak for like hours more. And I wish I had recorded that conversation too, because we just touched on so many different things. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I hope you guys got something out of that. I hope it gave you something to think about in terms of like whether you have someone in your own world that you feel might be facing unhealthy habits or mindsets when it comes to food and exercise, or even if it's just you realizing, oh wait, hold up, wait a minute, I have been having some unhealthy thoughts when it comes towards XYZ. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week.